I think Judge Carter in California, who analyzed just one small piece of this, concluded that the former president and others were engaged, or there was evidence they were engaged in a criminal conspiracy, evidence they were engaged in an effort to stop an official proceeding, the joint session. I think the evidence is there to make a referral, and we just have to decide whether that's the course we're going to take.
January 6th committee member Adam Schiff setting expectations that accountability could be coming for Donald Trump. And it better be if that plans to be the case, because time's running out since the incoming Republican majority will dissolve the January 6th committee. They've only got about a month to make that decision and release their final report. Back with us to discuss tonight, Peter Baker, chief White House correspondent for the New York Times, and Professor Melissa Murray of NYU Law School. She was a law clerk for Sonia Sotomayor on the federal bench before her nomination to the Supreme Court. Peter, you're out of luck. Melissa is wearing my favorite shirt, so she is going first. Melissa, what would a criminal referral do in terms of to the DOJ investigation?
So a criminal referral to the DOJ would basically put the ball in DOJ's court to review the evidence amassed by the January 6th Special Committee and make a determination about whether or not it's going to go forward with the prosecution of the former president. So the fact of a referral is by itself quite significant, but it then requires an even more significant action on the part of the special counsel.
Peter, we're talking about a former president of the United States who revels in partisanship and division. You wrote in the New York Times that the special counsel really doesn't do much to take politics out of these investigations. Nothing's going to, though.
Right. No, that's exactly right, which is why, in fact, the old structures, the old way we have of doing business may not be adequate to the moment anymore. We've yet to find in decades since Watergate a means by which we can hold rogue presidents or other high officials accountable without at least the perception on the part of some people that politics may be involved, whether it is or not. And that's the idea of this whole special counsel regulation in the first place, to try to reassure the public that, no, it's not the administration of the current president prosecuting the guy who it beat and may want to run again, does want to run against him in 2 years, which looks very questionable to some Americans. It, in fact, is a separate, independent special counsel who's going to make these judgments without fear or favor of politics. That's an ideal that we have subscribed to, but in reality, Trump would never allow the idea that a special counsel is somehow removed from politics. He's going to make clear, and he already has, and his people have, that he considers a special prosecutor nothing more than an adjunct to the Biden administration, yet another witch hunter and persecutor and so forth. So, in fact, the goal that may be high-minded, which is to say we're going to try to make this apolitical, is unrealistic in today's age, especially when you have somebody like former President Trump, who doesn't play by the same rules that previous presidents played by.
Melissa, Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg has been pummeled for his handling or mishandling of Donald Trump. Now Peter's paper is reporting that perhaps Alvin Bragg is investigating Trump's hush money payment to Stormy Daniels back in 2016. I mean, do you believe this is anything real at this point? Because it really just sounds like cleanup on aisle 5.
Well, I mean, to be clear, to even have this out there would be damaging for the New York DA if he wasn't really seriously considering this. And the reporting suggests that this theory, relying on the Stormy Daniels payment, is what they call a kind of zombie theory. Despite the fact that they keep putting it to the side, it keeps popping back up again. So there may actually be merit to this, something that they're thinking about. And the real question is what's going on in the Weisselberg case that's also being prosecuted by the Manhattan DA. So there may be some connection between what is happening with Alan Weisselberg, who was the Trump organization's chief financial guy. If there's more to be revealed or more pressure that could be put in Weisselberg, that might provide additional information that would make a charge based on the Stormy Daniels payment more plausible.
And do you believe Weisselberg is feeling any pressure? This guy is still getting paid by the Trump organization. On the stand, teary-eyed last week, 100% blamed himself, not one member of the Trump family. He hasn't shown one iota that he's going to point the finger at anybody else. He's fully willing to take the fall here.
To be sure, Stephanie, he has fallen on about 1,500 swords at this point, but He's also 75 years old. He's a septuagenarian who's likely to do 5 months in prison. That's not easy time by any measure, even if it is only 5 months. So perhaps there is something else there. There's some discussion of insurance-related charges that might be brought to bear against him, and maybe that will point him in the direction of perhaps revealing more about his associations with the Trump Organization and the former president himself.
I don't know if this guy's still getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars and who knows what else. 5 months might not be that long. Peter, you've covered Donald Trump for years and years. Do you think we're any closer to holding him accountable tonight?
Well, look, first of all, let's remember that he has been held accountable by the voters, which is the most important accountability in some ways. He lost the 2020 election no matter what he says. He lost it by a lot, and he lost the popular vote twice, the only 2 times he's run. So there is accountability in that sense. It's a political accountability, not a legal accountability. But you're right. There's a lot of frustration on the part of many people who think that all the different things he has done to push, if not violate the law, have never been brought to any kind of resolution against him. And there's frustration over the appointment of the special counsel for that very question. Does that mean we're going to delay this even further while a new prosecutor gets up to speed? And if we delay it deep into next year, does that put it so close to the primaries then that people start feeling like it's improper to bring charges when he's an active candidate seeking votes? Or at least, even if he does bring charges, does it discredit them in the minds of part of the public, that is the Trump supporting public, because he says, look, this is all obviously politics to go out and get me. So that's the concern a lot of people have. Having said that, there's an interesting observation that one lawyer made to me, a former Trump lawyer, in fact, who said, look, the fact that Merrick Garland, the attorney general, was willing to appoint the special counsel may indicate something important. It may indicate that he has passed the threshold question of whether he thinks it's appropriate to charge a former president and an active presidential candidate in the first place, right? In other words, why have a special counsel if you haven't reached that threshold question, which is one that people have raised? Is it in the public interest to do something like this? And then therefore, it's up to the special counsel to review the facts, review the evidence, and decide whether the elements of the law have been met for a crime. And that's really interesting if that's in fact the case. If Merrick Garland has decided on the matter of the issue of public interest, it's okay to prosecute a former president, that's a big step by itself.
All right, we'll soon find out. We just can't hold our breaths. Melissa, we're out of time, but I know I have to ask you before we go. The New York Times reported over the weekend about a second Supreme Court leak. This one is tied to Roe v. Wade. What can you tell us?
Well, so the leak is actually tied to Burwell versus Hobby Lobby, which is a 2014 challenge to the contraceptive mandate of the Affordable Care Act. But the real story here isn't the fact of the second leak, but the detailed campaign for influence at SCOTUS that a number of conservative operatives launched over time, actually gaining access to Justices Scalia, Thomas, and Alito. And again, the person who's probably really ruining all of this information is Chief Justice John Roberts, because this is not good for the court's legitimacy at all. And you're kind of wondering if anyone's praying for a resignation from one of these justices here, it's got to be the Chief Justice who wants to restore the legitimacy of the court in the public's eyes and who stands to benefit from maybe having an opening where he is once again the pivotal swing justice on this conservative court.
That's a lot to take in. Peter Baker, Melissa Murray, thank you both so much for being here.